What's going on, everybody? It's Frito here for Your Overwatch, and today we're going to be taking a look at the new experimental card, where, yes, it's that time of year again. Just like last year, Genji's getting a buff, and a few Overwatch 2 type changes are going into the live game, or at least appear to be. We'll get into all of that and more, but first, a message from today's video sponsor, Keeps. True story, when I first started playing Overwatch, I had a full head of hair, but 5 years of ranked mode malding does this to you, which is why you guys need to get ahead of the game and start using Keeps. Did you know 2 out of 3 men will experience some form of male pattern baldness by the time they hit 35? But the best way to prevent hair loss is by strengthening it while you still have hair left. And please do it for me. I'm too far gone. You still have a chance. With Keeps, a licensed doctor will review your information online and make a specialized plan just for you and have the treatment mailed directly to your door every 3 months. Keeps uses generic FDA-approved medications, so it's cheaper than other alternatives. With Keeps, you can message your doctor 24/7 online and get any of your questions or concerns handled as you track your progress. Please, guys, do it for my sake. If you're ready to start preventing hair loss today, follow our link in the description for keeps.com/youroverwatch. That's KEEPS.com/youroverwatch, and you'll get 50% off your first order. You gotta try this out. First change of the patch note, Doomfist now has a very interesting and kind of complicated mechanic, the type that didn't get introduced in the first few years of the game, but now is normal to make characters viable. Meteor Strike now speeds up the cooldown rates of abilities by 100% while in air, so doubling the recharge rate. I think on Rocket Punch, since it's on a 4-second cooldown anyway, you probably weren't too worried about getting that one back. But for Uppercut and Seismic Slam, this gives Doomfist quite a lot of flexibility and power with his ultimate to time exactly where he wants to come down. Some content creators were upset with D.Va getting the remech buff, giving her 2 ultimates, I might say 1.5 ultimates, but remech being kind of better than Meteor Strike looks a little silly, so now Doomfist gets a major benefit while in the Meteor Strike untargetable phase, where while you're trying to set up to land damage or place yourself to stage for your next series of abilities, your key cooldowns, particularly Seismic Slam, I'd say, which is kind of required more so than Uppercut in my opinion, as it allows you to go up to high ground and then slam down on somebody for 125 damage. That one coming back in a few seconds is going to offer you some key flexibility in timing your engages, as opposed to having to wait around while you regen your cooldowns. This sort of affords you the opportunity to both have a better Meteor Strike, but as well come out locked and loaded more quickly. Even if you were to rush it immediately, while you're waiting for it to animate, you're getting your cooldowns back. So even if you were to press the ult instantly, during its wind-up time, you're still shaving off crucial seconds off your big cooldowns, meaning you're going to be able to move again with Uppercut or Slam rather quickly. The next change is to Genji, a bit of an odd one, gaining 1 damage. Surely this has to be a practical joke.
Is this an out-of-season April Fool's joke?
I mean, I swear I've seen memes joking about the next Genji buff being 1 damage, and the mad lads actually did it. Okay, let's make some sense of this. The devs say the shuriken damage increase doesn't sound like a lot. I mean, it's 1, so can they even change it less than that? But it crosses a threshold or breakpoint against some enemy targets, enabling them to be eliminated with 1 less attack landed. To help balance out this increased power for his primary weapon, we're reducing the damage of the Dragon Blade ultimate, which is also a breakpoint against some targets when being damage boosted. Okay, so he loses 10 damage off the Dragon Blade. This whole change goes back to an old Seagull criticism where they eventually retuned Genji to more or less just be a ultimate bot, just a Dragon Blade bot. So they're attempting to shift some of that power into his normal mid fight. I mean, they did this last year in an overkill way. Now they're trying a more measured approach. It's nice to see the devs bring up breakpoints, as that's all that matters when considering this kind of thing. I did find some interesting breakpoints on this and took a look at the shuriken damage, remembering that Genji shoots 3 shurikens at a time, either one after the other or 3 at once as a shotgun blast. So on a 200 HP squishy, you used to need over 7 shurikens to the body in order to finish off a target. But now you can do this at 1 less shuriken at 7. Whereas before, 7 wouldn't do the full trick. They'd have a little bit of health left. And of course, anytime you hit a headshot, it deals double damage, which counts as 2 shurikens per each one you hit. But either way, since we're working with a 7 shuriken number, you cannot triple shuriken volley to the head to one-shot a squishy like you could last year when they overbuffed Genji to the max. This is important because on the live version of Genji, 3 shurikens to the head will not leave the target at melee chip health damage to easily be finished off, but the new version will. So although these breakpoints are incredibly subtle with the attacks you need to land, it is helping Genji out a little bit. I will also note against bigger targets, just like last time they buffed him this way, this means he will be getting Dragon Blade more frequently, just ever so slightly. I mean, 1 damage per hit, but in a way you could think of it as 3 damage per volley, which might be 6 damage if you're hitting the head. So all of that does upscale your Dragon Blade farm rate a little bit. Now, what about the Dragon Blade's breakpoints? So the old value I have memorized in my head because it used to be a very standard number. Far as rockets were 120, for example. Dragon Blade as well used to fit, which means with a nano boost giving 50% damage amplification, it used to do 180. New Nano Blade will only do 165, which is important because that means a couple interesting breakpoints come up while in Nano Blade form. Remember, Swift Strike does 50 damage, but with a Nano Boost will deal 75. So the old version of a swipe from the Dragon Blade and a dash used to total 255, meaning characters like Mei and Reaper fell over with those 2 abilities. But now with the new Dragon Blade, let's call it Pool Noodle Blade, although your Swift Strike will still do 75 with a Nano Boost applied, the blade itself swing is only doing 165, meaning the combo of those 2 total up to 240. 10 damage underneath the health threshold of a Reaper or Mei. And Doomfist's health gets to value similar to this, so maybe throw him in that boat as well. Long story short, you should be able to see and feel the ramifications of this blade nerf against tankier targets. I try to play around with the numbers a bit to see how this might feel when you're going up against different healing sources, which also plays with those breakpoints. From what I can tell, the big bursts of Genji damage are high enough that for the most part, you should still have the same time to kill on squishies. However, when you don't have Nano Blade applied, a single mercy healing a Reaper or Mei may feel unkillable. Remember as well, there's characters out there like Symmetra who had a health buff. It was already the case that a lot of these characters at the lower ranks kind of dominated Genji. And if you're not using Nano Blade, I think that's going to be even harsher with this new blade nerf, keeping in mind that hitting shurikens is harder than swinging a blade around. So I think it's safe to say this changeup disproportionately affects the bottom half of the ranks in a negative way. Especially when you combine with the Moira buff that's coming up, that's even more lopsided, I feel like. Next patch note, the devs say Moira has recently been underperforming a little bit. This increase to her self-healing with Biotic Grasp will help improve her survivability while in range to recharge her healing resources. Biotic Grasp self-healing goes up from 20 to 24 health per second. On the flip side of what I just said about Genji, Moira is a character whose buffs disproportionately hurt the lower tiers, because at tiers where the mechanics aren't as strong, a accessible skill floor ability like Moira's attack makes the lives of the lower skilled Genjis they're playing kind of a nightmare until you get to a rank where the Genjis will be able to hit shurikens more reliably to be able to duel the Moira. But to be honest, you gotta be pretty high for that to be the case, where she feels like she doesn't easily win the matchup. But a few breakpoints to consider. I think what's reasonable to expect Moira's self-heal to do is thinking about how long it takes to heal certain amounts, keeping in mind that this leech ability applies during the duel. So as you're receiving damage, you're healing it back up again. It used to be that it took 5 full seconds in order to heal 100 HP. Now at 24 healing per second, it's just over 4 seconds. So 4 and some change. I don't think an engagement realistically lasts more than, say, 10 seconds anyway, without at least the enemy falling over or running away. But if you were to fight for 10 full seconds with Grasp, you used to get 200 health at 10 seconds. Now you can get that same 200 health at just over 8 seconds. I really like playing Moira personally, but I think this is a character Blizzard just never really balanced for the game. They're really hell-bent on forcing the performance of characters for the higher tiers without realizing the damage damage it does to the lower, and they're doing it in a subtle way with Moira repeatedly with all these changes, but it's the type of thing sort of like the Reaper buff years ago that I feel like they just kind of ignore if it's not causing a obvious problem at the higher tiers. But the truth is, as far as support value goes, Moira gets some insane instant support value for the effort it takes to play her, which is why I love playing her. But so I don't know where they're getting this data that she's not a good character. I think that's something I'd be careful with, considering it's relative for the skill cost of it. But anyway, moving on, Roadhog gets a Overwatch 2 type buff. The devs explain for similar reasons that they're doing this in the 5v5 mode for Overwatch 2. Roadhog now in Overwatch 1 will passively grant 25% less ultimate charge. This was a suggested change years ago when the community thought about how to handle Roadhog's role as a tank character who more or less functions as like a individualistic DPS most of the time. We can expect this change for Overwatch 2 and kind of trial it out in the current version of the game. I think some matchups you might think about this affecting more directly is vertical flanking heroes like Echo, or especially Genji, who just got his damage buffed. It'll be interesting to see the rate they're able to build their ults, or how much it's slowed down in comparison to the old version, while now farming a Roadhog, because those are characters that get the positionings they want, can stay out of arm's reach of the hog, and poke him down as he moves anywhere, farming for an ultimate, which is the strongest part of their kit. In that kind of matchup, Hog always presented a problem for his team where the enemy would be able to easily farm up their ultimates. Another one might be like Dragon Strike with Zarya Graviton Surge. Very simple combo that can dominate the metal ranks. So just picking Hog and not doing enough with him might mean your whole team kind of gets rolled by some of the stronger ultimates in the game. It's my opinion that Hog was a pretty tough hero in ranked normally. He was maybe abysmal at the top 500 rank, but it's not like you're going to get the whole game to be balanced for pro level players anyway. For just about everyone else, I felt Hog was a serious playmaker, even in the ult fight, since they buffed whole Hog to outrageous degrees. So now with this passive buff on top of that, we'll see if this deals with some of the feeding problems of the lower ranks, or at the upper ranks too. Getting ult off him is a big deal, but I think it's more common that those Hog players do a better job committing to flanks as opposed to just feeding ult charge all the time. Like, I don't feel like I see that at the highest tiers too much, but always interested to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comment section down below. Next change is to Soldier 76. We'll call this one the second Deja Vu, or What Year Is It buff, reverting the heavy pulse rifle to a value it's been before, multiple times if I recall correctly. 20 damage per shot now is a big deal. The developers explain it like this, saying the damage per shot for the heavy pulse rifle has been adjusted several times now, as it's an important tuning breakpoint for Soldier 76. It was last reduced when his weapon spread was replaced by recoil to help account for the increased accuracy potential. Though, with the recent reductions to his damage fall off at long range, that was with the massive hit scan nerf a while back, it's reasonable to increase his damage output once again while pulling some power out of his area of effect healing utility. Okay, and that's the one thing I didn't mention. He's losing 5 healing per second out of Biotic Field, but getting his 20 damage shots again. Now, we talked about breakpoints a lot today, so this one I'll just do in fast forward. 20 is a very nice number because it's 10 body shots or 5 headshots in order to kill a normal 200 HP squishy. Whereas at the 19 damage value, you would need another shot for each. Since my last tier list, I've really been thinking if I was too hard on Soldier, because as a lot of you guys pointed out, despite me feeling like he's really underwhelming stats-wise, he's just such a reliable teammate that doesn't have the same skill cost of other heroes, and because of that, there's certain matchups where he just feels reliable to not throw the game, because other heroes are hard enough now, like Widow with 175 health, that just feel like you throw the game if you don't play perfectly. Now, sure, they have the peak performance potential, but Soldier being able to heal himself, being able to run around, he plays Overwatch in like a really streamlined way, which made me wonder if I was too harsh on him last time I made the tier list. Especially up against flyer characters like Echo and Pharah, being able to lay down very easy hit scan damage, even with losing the range battle significantly. In certain matchups, Soldier's still a good hero. Does that mean he deserved to be higher ranked? We can debate that till the cows come home. But I think 20 damage shots might demand attention from that tier list. Because remember, you add just a little bit of damage and you're getting more ults. An ult that they buffed in the last patch. His ult wasn't the reason why I didn't rate him highly. His new ult without range fall off is insane. And although going up against a character like Genji who has more damage in this patch, Doomfist has that flexibility with his ult. I think Doom really farms Soldier as well, especially if he's got his cooldowns up, which he will more reliably with his buff. So yes, he gets weaker in a couple matchups, which is important to think about. Other than that, it's tough for me to think that he's going to remain at the lower pecking order that he was at. I will note that this 5 less healing per second on the biotic field, only 35 health per second now, will matter to his ult generation when he is healing his teammates. You used to be able to drop that right on your tank line and farm up easy ult. So all things considered, if you had that part of your playstyle, you may notice you're getting Tac Visor slower than before. If you never did that though, you'll get it faster. Keeping in mind that healing always generates more ult than damage, if I recall correctly. I feel like I knew that 4 years ago. I think that's true. Either way though, I just want to remind everybody that we've never seen Soldier at this damage level with his new accuracy. And with all the hit scans having their ranges nerfed, remember in my tier list, I said McCree was the massive winner because the game is more mid-range. Well, if Soldier can pound in the mid-range with 20 damage shots, I think this is certainly a buff that is going to put him in contention with characters like McCree. Maybe not at the tippity top, but whereas in that big shakeup, he lost that matchup when the sort of range window he was winning at kind of became irrelevant. Now with this damage added in, well, I feel like he's just jumping confidently towards that medium range potential yet again, even up against the 225 HP McCree. But even more so, those damage breakpoints really matter up against characters like Echo and Pharah, who are trying to extend their lives with the healing resources of their team. Taking one less bullet might be the difference if they're able to retreat to their team to get healed or not. In my opinion anyway, this is a more important breakpoint than the Genji breakpoints. Also keep in mind, hit scan as a concept in Overwatch, especially since the game became more about map cover instead of tank cover. I think it's tough to envision a world where some of the hit scans aren't dominant at whatever range, unless they're just useless, just due to the potential skill ceiling of landing all your shots, as opposed to hoping they'd land with a projectile. We'll see how that one bears out. Next change is to Wrecking Ball, who gets a interesting series of changes. The developers explained that Wrecking Ball is the fastest hero in the game, which works well for his disruptive playstyle. However, to help reduce his contribution to objective stalling, his grappling claw ability will now start on cooldown upon respawning. This is a wonderful change, which for ball players might feel bad that you don't get that instant burst of momentum coming out of spawn, but for the balance of the game and the obnoxious objective stalling that he can do, I definitely think this is a healthier version of Wrecking Ball. When Wrecking Ball was quite a problematic hero, I had suggested or asked to the devs if they ever considered changing the claw cooldown, which would be a drastic change. Their response was, if they were to do something like that, it can very quickly kill the character, because you go from being able to reliably move around the map to having nothing to do too much. So this nerf is a very subtle and targeted change that only really applies to running back to the fight, as opposed to the uptime when already between engagements, which is pretty intelligent from the developers. Now, the next change to Adaptive Shield is pretty interesting, where the cast time has been reduced to having a 0.2 second delay to now having no delay. It is instant. And on top of that, increases its duration from 7 seconds to 9 seconds. So what I'm attempting and failing to do in the training range here is to pop the Adaptive Shield when 3 training bots are around me by staring at the indicator in the bottom left, which is a good ball tip for you guys to maximize your Adaptive Shield as you're rolling through the team. Try to keep an eye on how many targets are getting caught in your Adaptive Shield radar, or whatever it's called, in order to maximize its effect. And now that it hits instantly, you'll be more reactive, I guess. I never thought that that delay did anything at all, but perhaps if you got stunned somehow right before it actually cast, there's a chance that it didn't go off in time. Now it'll be more responsive, and it lasts longer. 9 seconds lets you stand up in the fight and contribute longer before it fades out on its own, keeping in mind that this now is buffing a different side to the adaptive shield, and many patches ago, they reduced its overall health. He used to be able to get 1,300, now he gets around 1,000 if he hits a good chunk of the enemy team. So now that they've given rid of some of the more obnoxious aspects of the overhealth, they're trying to creep it back in another way. And last change for the video, minefield proximity mines no longer stick to walls. Huh, that's interesting. I wonder if there was any spots where you wanted to stick them to walls. There's some objectives that have rooms that, especially characters that like ride on the walls or jump through windows, maybe you would have wanted the mines to stay there, but for the most part, I think this applies to a map like Ilios, Lighthouse, where it feels like every Wrecking Ball player has accidentally pressed Q into the sunroof, I guess this is, and they used to all get stuck in this upper area. Now, having tried this a few times, I only can get a few stuck if it's on that little molding or edge, I guess. Technically, I think maybe you could walk on that. It's considered a platform, but otherwise, it doesn't get connected to the walls or the ceiling at all. It just bounces right off. Still not going to be a great minefield, but at least it won't fully go to waste up in the sky. Although perhaps this may remove your ability to place mines in certain strategic locations. For the most part, I think it means you'll land them where you want to more reliably. And also, as well, as a mobile character coming out, it was always annoying to find a mine in some random spot sticking to a wall you didn't expect. So I think that's more so maybe a change for the reliability of the gameplay more so than the balance, which a lot of this patch probably is and has been for Overwatch for quite some time, I think, as they gear up for Overwatch 2. Well, that's going to be it for today's video. Be sure to check out Keeps in the description. Head on over to keeps.com/youroverwatch and get 50% off your first order. If some of these patch notes make you mauled, you're going to want to get some of that preventative care ASAP. So click the link in the description. It supports the channel and helps us keep making more content. Beyond that, that's been it for me. I've been Frito for Your Overwatch. We'll see you guys next time.